amazing people on stage with me, Barron and Noah. So we're going to talk about what Barron and Noah are working on in terms of driving growth within One Kings Lane. So why don't we kick it off? So I'm Eva. I have a seed fund called Susa Ventures. So if you guys would just take maybe one sentence, just say what you do at your organization and what your organization actually does. And then maybe one little factoid about you that we might not be able to find on Google.
So I'm Barron Ernst. I'm Director of Product Management for One Kings Lane, mostly responsible for email and growth for the company. One Kings Lane is a leading e-commerce site for home decor and home fashion. And the one fact about me is I got my name because my dad had read Conrad Hilton's book about 2 months before I was born and decided he liked that better than most of the common names that they had been discussing. So that's where it came from.
Cool. Excellent.
And I'm Noah Jessop, co-founder and CEO of CommandIQ. CommandIQ is a company that helps big consumer brands send tailored, targeted calls to action across email, push notifications, and any other channel. And I guess a fact about me that doesn't really show up is I was homeschooled all the way until university.
Interesting. Really neat. So I love One Kings Lane. I love the emails that I get. What are people really buying on One Kings Lane? Are there quirky items that we're not normally that we wouldn't get?
I mean, there's obviously a lot of people are still buying the things you would expect them to buy. There's a lot of people buying couches, bedroom furniture, tabletop accessories. We have a lot of really great brands who work with us as well. But we also see interesting little trendy items, like we sell a lot of Moscow Mule mugs. We sell we've had a lot of success selling cheese boards, trunk organizers. So it really goes all over the map. It's anything that really is about how do you create a really great style for your home and how do you make your home really represent who you are and extend that through your life. And a home is a huge expression of that for all of our customers.
Cool. Quickly give us some metrics of how big is this?
Yeah. So we have 11 million subscribers. We launch about 2,000 new products a day on the site and send each of our subscriber base 1 to 2 emails every single day announcing some of the new products that are on the site. We also do, working with Noah, which we'll talk about in a bit, a variety of other types of communications to our users where we're trying to help them identify opportunities where something that they're looking for may be now available on the site or different things like that. So it's a pretty substantial amount of users who we're communicating with regularly to help them really find the things that they're very interested in for their home.
Super. So we are going to dig a lot into email today. What's interesting about One Kings Lane is I remember hearing either Ali or Sue talk a few years ago. When they started the company, they were sending out this daily email, and it was so popular that one day when the server actually went down, people wrote in and said, hey, why was that taken off the list? Did I do something wrong? So that's how fanatical and addictive the emails have been for One Kings Lane. And speaking to these guys, it still remains their main driver of traffic to their website and their applications. So let's talk about it a little more. So you two are working together, doing a lot of things like A/B testing. So what are you actually doing, and what have the results been?
So, the biggest thing that we've done at One Kings Lane is what you just talked about. Is we send a variety of emails that are all about the new products that are launching every day. And as you mentioned, those emails are received by our users in an incredibly positive way. They open them, they look for them. We see just a ton of users coming every day whenever we're sending those emails out because they're very inspired by the home decor that we're presenting to them. And many users come, and not necessarily to buy, just to look, because the home decor is just interesting and it's something that they can use to inspire their own sense of design. And then working with CommandIQ, one of the things we're starting to look at is how do we start to look at other opportunities beyond our daily emails to have more direct trigger types of communications with our users. So, if we know a user looks at a certain type of item, if we know that they're looking at certain types of categories, how do we help them have a better sort of experience on the website where we can help target communications to them when they want them and say things like, hey, we know you were looking for this. Here's an example of the things you were looking for that might be interesting to you now, types of opportunities.
And what we found with a number of our customers is just by giving that super tailored call to action, you're really adding value because you can send fewer messages and have higher engagement.
And are you more focused on acquisition or retention, or when you're sending out emails?
Most of our emails are retention focused. So we're largely focused on our existing customer base, and we're looking at how do we continuously engage them with our site, both from a perspective of how do we get them to come back and shop, but also from a perspective of how do we deliver to them interesting editorial types of content that just keeps them coming back to the site on a regular basis. So it's a combination. I mean, it's not acquisition, but it's a combination of different tactics that we leverage on the retention side. We obviously want you to come back and shop, but we're also very happy if you're just coming back and browsing because there's a lot of interesting products that you can be engaged with. That's of value to us as well, and that's one of the big reasons our customers come back on a regular basis.
So specifically in terms of, you've been working with a lot of emails over the last 6 months that you guys have been working together. Share with us sort of any specifics that you've learned that you use, like is it changing buttons? Are we talking about changing links? Are we talking about changing the messaging, the images? Like what's been most effective?
Specifically to like our daily emails, I mean, we test all various elements of it. Not surprisingly, I mean, one of the things that resonate with our users in many cases is we have really beautiful photography in our photos. And when we take really beautiful photos, users respond really positively to that. So, we have a great team that spends a lot of time taking just beautiful photos every single day of the variety of things we're selling, and the more intelligence we can provide about that, the better. So that's one of the big opportunities we've seen. In terms of just kind of like interesting learnings, what we've found is, I think for a long time we thought that we're going to just show a very small set of items to our users every single day, and we've actually found that we can show even longer numbers of things that are still available on the site because our users are always looking for something to be inspired by. And even if it's not necessarily one of the 7 new things of the day, if they only come and see the email once every 2 or 3 days, they may see something that was a new product from the prior week and then get excited about it, and that's a driver to actually bring them back to the website. So that's been an interesting learning for us, which is that our users, while they are very interested in the tailoring of our content and like that we have an editorial mindset around it, they are totally okay with us showing them more of it in email because we are trying to be kind of like a bazaar of home goods where we're trying to come up with a number of different things that no matter what your taste in home decor, we can try to help you serve that need.
And then tactically speaking, Barron's team is kind of relentlessly iterating the tests that they're running. So it's have a hypothesis, come up with a 2 to 3 part multivariate test with a control group that says how does a group that's untouched by this change with this messaging stream behave. Quickly look to see after getting a sufficient amount of data about what actually drove lift or the results that they're trying to drive as far as their metrics, and then quickly roll out the new set of tests.
Yeah.
And so for them, everybody likes to kind of drop, we ran this many A/B tests, or which in sort of a nebulous term of what that is. But for them, I think they've really identified a couple core metrics that matter to the business, and then everything is about giving their customers a better experience and driving the metrics they care about.
Yeah, exactly.
As
Can
quickly
you
as
hit a
possible.
ceiling where you feel like you've already optimized as best as like one category email to one segment of customers? You're like, this is the best I'm going to be able to do. Do you hit that ceiling at all, or is it always tweaking and things?
Well, so the next level above that we're seeing is as soon as you have like a generalized for like a large segment is to drill down to the individuals and start to tailor based on the specifics about what that customer wants to see.
I do think at some level, like you will hit diminishing marginal returns on portions of your email. Like you can only at some point, if you've tested every single button color, continuing to test button color and placement is not necessarily the right thing to do. But there's always another element of email that you can start to dive deeper on. There's always the subject line and how it's constructed, the preview pane and how it's constructed, the layout of the email and how it's constructed. And there's just infinite numbers of different little iterations and things that you can continue to go on. And you can oftentimes find very interesting, like compelling learnings in those areas that then leads you off on another path where it's like, okay, this is actually a really important thing for us to iterate on. Or you discover things like what we've come up with Noah, where it's like, hey, we actually have this whole other potential set of emails that we should consider sending to our users because they're actually interested in seeing this sort of content.
Got it. So if there was like a new commerce company in the audience that's coming to you, Noah, what you've learned from working with One Kings Lane, is a lot of that like applicable to other commerce sites, or is 80% of it applicable and 20% you find, like how would they think about it?
I guess the thing I always like to say is if you know the data points showed up and bought something based on the time of showing up what you looked at before you bought something and when you bought something, based on every single individual user's collection of those data events, you can start to build a huge number of different segments that you can start testing what works for your business. And I think it's, for newer companies that haven't necessarily reached the same level of sophistication, it's about figuring out what the metrics are that you're trying to drive, and then getting in a place where you can move quickly and test quickly and see what's actually moving the numbers for your business.
Got it. So I think yesterday Zappos was on stage and they talked about like applying weather data to their ads to make it more personalized. You guys work a lot with granular targeting and sort of what we call, the overused word of personalization. But what data are you using for that? Get as specific as you can. Like what are you pulling together and how are you applying that?
Absolutely, and this is One Kings Lane, and then also to other folks that we work with. Step one is just get all the first-party data that you're already collecting, whether it's app usage data, whether it's on-site clicks and browsing data, or whether it's the stuff that's already buried in the vendors you work with, like push notifications sent, or in the case we work with ExactTarget alongside in One Kings Lane, pulling out the clicks and open data. So you can say, let's target a group of people who haven't opened emails recently and haven't returned to site. And right just from that first-party data, you can start to do a lot. Right. And then another piece that we see a lot of companies trying to piece together is if you were to go get some third-party data sets, whether demographic, based on IP or otherwise, how do you put that in a place that the marketing team can actually take action on it and use it to drive lift?
So for folks in the audience, in terms of the first-party data, are there people that come to you and you're like, oh my God, your data's crap because you didn't build a data model correctly from the start, or you're missing one attribute that's like the most significant trigger? Like, what do you see? Is there stuff for folks who are just starting out, building their first commerce? Like, what should they be collecting? Is there a right way to do it? Any sort of lessons there?
So a lot of always start with streams of data. When you're going to do something new, the easiest way is to say, like, let's look at the new user flow, because these are people that we're going to have a complete set of data. And then separately, what are the active engaged users that we can actually drive lift with? Versus, I think a lot of people have the fear, and I think Zynga definitely talked about this back in the day, of let's load all the data from all time, and only if we have every data point our company's ever seen will we be able to get to the answer. And we don't think that way at all.
The one other add I might provide is just that if you know what you think your success metrics are in advance, that's a good way to start to pinpoint what key data points you need along the path to hit those success metrics. So like if you know click-through rate matters or visits from email matters, then you can back that into here's the variety of metrics that are going to happen before a user actually visits the site that we're going to need to collect along that path. And then you can feed that over to these guys and they can help you analyze it.
Has there been any sort of new revelations in terms of a source of data that you've added recently, or even like an attribute that you're just like, wow, we're going to experiment with this and it's actually had some impact that people might not have heard of or anything like that?
A source of data. If you might have any insights there.
So we've seen some very interesting stuff where people will append third-party data sets based on IP or geo to pull, I guess, more data based on either stuff from that data set and then use that within their targeting. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit vague about that.
No, that's okay. Is One Kings Lane using geo at all? Meaning, like, if I'm walking around and you know that I'm in Union Square, that you might show me send me a different email versus something else?
No. I mean, what we largely are doing is more looking at, like I said earlier, we have like a number of users, lots of products being launched. So we're looking more specifically at like what things are users coming back when we're messaging them about, what things are users clicking on, how are they interacting with the site when they're coming, and then what we're starting to look at with CommandIQ is also what's the right device to message them on. I mean, 35% of our users are on mobile. I mean, more than that, obviously, but we see email traffic on mobile continuing to go up. We see revenue on mobile, which is like 35% right now, continuing to go up a lot. And so both tailoring the email or the message is important, but then the other thing that will become important for us is tailoring the message to the right device as well. And that's I think, going to be the big opportunity for us as well.
And we definitely see this in sophisticated companies that have kind of already figured out what their mobile strategy is. Have an email program in place is just being able to tie all that together to have a cohesive call to action for their customers.
Makes a lot of sense. So we only have a couple of minutes left. Final questions. So there's so many, not so many, there are quite a few email optimization platforms out there. Big ones like HubSpot, which is like one little bit of their stack, to newer ones that are out there like retention science and stuff. Why did you choose CommandIQ?
Biggest reason is a couple things. Number one, the greatest thing is I don't have to switch out any of our existing big providers to work with these guys. They plug in on top, and I know you're going to talk about that as one of your big value adds, but it's a huge value add for us. We can continue to work with partners we've worked with for a long time, but then leverage these guys to help us better target and add more intelligence to our emails on top of it. And then secondarily, I'm just a big fan of their background. They're, both Noah and the rest of his team are very, very data-driven, very, very scientific about everything. And they've been a great team to work with from the perspective of it's like having another team of developers in-house to help you build a really great set of additional tools to interact with your customers.
And for you, Noah, how do you think you're different? And given you serve you do one thing quite well, but other people do like a ton of things, how do you fit into the overall sort of market automation?
So there's two pieces. One, I'll go into some of the most sophisticated companies that I can find, and they say, wow, we've spent 3 years building a house tool that doesn't look like this or have these functions. Can I take some screenshots of this demo? So sort of giving companies that haven't necessarily dedicated the resources to building all of this in-house the sophistication they're going to need to compete. That's part one. And then definitely the interoperability. We believe that easy data in, easy data out. If we can be the tool that the marketing and product team can use to quickly drive results, that's how we earn our keep, not by controlling the data.
And I mean, the one thing I would say is some of the early tests we've been running with them, we've seen 3 to 4x lifts in our click-through rates with those early tests. And so that's a big reason for us to keep moving forward with them, because we're seeing just great early results, and it just gives validation to the whole concept that they're pushing.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for being here with us. We didn't leave any room for questions, unfortunately. I apologize for that. But please find us after the session or in the hallway during lunch, etc. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, folks. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed learning some new things from One Kings Lane.